Hello, listeners. Welcome to Furs, Fins, and Feathers, a podcast presented by the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. I'm Parker.
And I'm Francis. In each episode, we will discuss a Wyoming wildlife species and the features that make it so incredible.
An icon of the West. Strong, well-traveled, survivor of an age gone by.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Mule deer.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Mule deer, the animal. Not Willie Nelson, the man.
Francis, we've talked about this.
I know.
All right, Francis, in case you forgot, this is Furs, Fins, and Feathers, and here's how this works. Francis and I will rate mule deer on a scale of 1 to 10 in a variety of categories. We then average our scores to get their wild rating.
Let's get on the road again. I'm just kidding. I'm done with Willie Nelson. Let's talk about mobility. It's how they move. I'm going to give mule deer an 8 out of 10.
You're just really into strong starts.
I think it's a good way to, launch into the episode.
I'm not disagreeing.
Right?
Yeah.
And all of the critters we talked about have earned a solid start. So
I agree.
I am going to give them an 8 out of 10 for their migration. The longest documented migration of mule deer was 240 miles through Wyoming.
That's pretty impressive.
I know. And so the migration was from the Red Desert of Wyoming all the way to Island Park in Idaho.
Oh, wow. So through multiple states.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
I'm going to give them a 7.
Okay.
And it's because they're pretty quick. They can run up to 40 miles an hour.
Really?
Yeah. So not like pronghorn quick.
Yeah, but still.
But pretty quick.
Yeah.
Nothing
Faster
to
than
sneeze
me.
at. Yeah. And they also have this really fun running behavior called stotting.
Yes. Oh, I get so excited when I see them stot.
Yes. So stotting, for those of you that haven't seen it, is when all 4 feet are off the ground. So it's almost like it's like kind of a half skip. Mm-hmm. It's like a little jump, but they're running. It's very impressive. They don't stot up to 40 miles an hour, but they do stop pretty quickly.
Every time I see them do this, in my mind, I'm saying these words, blink, blink, blink.
I think that's the right sound effect.
Yes.
Let's stot on over to size. Size is how big or how small, how short or how tall. We do care about them all. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give mule deer a 7 for size.
Nice.
So in the deer family, which obviously they're in because they're a deer, but it's with like elk, moose, whitetail deer, things like that.
The hoofed animals.
The hoofed animals.
Yeah.
They're certainly on the upper edge, but they're not the biggest.
Right.
They can weigh up to 300 pounds for like really, really big bucks.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's a sizable animal.
Yeah.
And they can stand up to 3.5 feet tall at the shoulder. So it's a respectable number.
So from the ground to their shoulder, it's 3.5 feet.
Yes.
Nice. I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10. And I'm going to talk about the size of their antlers. Now, their antlers can be up to 30 inches wide and 20 inches tall, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be fairly happy with that.
Especially compared to like whitetails.
Yeah. So speaking of whitetail versus mule deer, it's actually really interesting kind of looking at how their antler pattern of growth is versus whitetail and mule deer. So whitetail antlers, imagine they're like highways.
Okay.
So if you're driving a highway, it's one main road with multiple exits, right? So the whitetail antler is one main beam with multiple tines sticking up from it.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Okay. Whereas a mule deer is like country roads. You're driving down a road, you hit an intersection, and then you split or you turn onto a different road. Does that make sense? So as the antlers on the mule deer are growing, it's extending upward, and then it almost splits into like a V pattern.
Okay.
Does that
and
make
then
sense?
it hits another point and it splits into another V.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right?
Well, that's an interesting way to put it. I've never thought about that, though.
Yeah. So it kind of gives you an idea of how they look.
Yeah.
Let's migrate our conversation into accessories. Accessories. My personal favorite, honestly. These are special features that the animal has. I'm going to give mule deer an 8 out of 10. And this is because of their sense of smell.
Yeah,
Now,
it's really annoying.
their sense of smell is?
Yeah,
well, especially if
super.
you're a hunter,
Yeah.
right? So Their smell is 1,000 times stronger than a human's.
I believe that.
They can smell a person a half mile away.
I have been that person.
Me too.
A half mile away.
I know.
It's incredible.
It really is.
They just pick you out.
I know. So what do you got?
I've got a 6.
Okay. Nice.
You talked about their great antlers. The problem with those big, 30-inch wide, 20-inch tall antlers is they're heavy.
They are, yeah.
And especially after they mate in the fall, it can be a lot to carry around through the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And so they actually have, like a lot of members of the deer family, this ability to shed their antlers.
Yeah, yep.
So they cut off the blood circulation and those antlers actually just fall to the ground, which saves them a lot of weight, saves them a lot of energy in the winter as they're walking around, especially for our bucks.
It's pretty fun to find them when you're walking around, too.
It is. It really is. Make sure you're following those shed antler seasons if you're on the western side of the state. With that, let's fall into style. Style is how attractive is that animal. Do they have special colorations? Any special markings? For mule deer, I'm going to give them a 7. And I'm going to talk specifically about their tail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Let's
their
hear
tail is funny. White tails obviously have white tails.
Right.
And those tails kind of flag up when they're running away. Black-tailed deer, like those western coast deer,
Yeah.
they have dark backgrounds and then like thin dark tails. Mule deer have this like white butt with a thin tail and a black tip on it.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
they do.
like really silly looking. And what's weird is it like helps break them up. You would think it would stick out like a sore thumb, like this light spot on their backside. It's like, oh, there's a mule deer. But instead, it's instead of one uniform color, now you've got like this lighter brown on their backside, and then it transitions into this lighter color, and now there's this really dark speck of black. And so your eyes lose them as you're looking across the landscape, and predators' eyes lose them as they're looking across the landscape. So it's a really interesting, I think we think of camouflage as like a whole body thing, but this is like one little feature that helps them blend into their environment.
Yeah. I like to think that whitetail, or we're talking about mule deer, but whitetail, when they're running away with, their white tails up, I like to think it's more of like a, haha, I want you to see me as I run away from you.
Yeah, they kind of like wave. The tails like wave, bye.
Yeah. So I
See you
appreciate
later.
the mule deer don't do that.
Yeah. What did you have for them?
I also have a 7.
Look at that. Great minds.
I know. And I'm going to talk about their big ears. So their big ears are for listening for predators.
Obviously.
Right. But what's also interesting is that it relates to their common name because they're called mule deer.
Big ears like a mule. Okay.
Right. And their Latin name is Hemionus,
Okay.
which means half mule.
They were really hitting that hard.
I
They were like,
know,
these animals
I know.
have big
So
ears
big
like
ears-
a mule.
Exactly. So therefore, their Latin name is half mule.
I love that they committed to the bit on that.
I love it too. Hey, do you hear that? It's the intimidation factor calling. Intimidation factor is how scary this animal is to other animals or to us. I'm going to give mule deer a 4. And this is because of how they fight during the rut. Now, like most other members of the deer family, they like to smash their antlers against other mule deer bucks. So the bucks will smash antlers against each other.
Uh-huh.
And, it doesn't really affect me, right? So I don't expect them to do whatever to me. But just seeing them do that, it's fairly impressive. There's a lot of pressure happening between those antlers. And so with that, I'm going to give them a 4.
It is impressive. But like you said, like most members of the deer family are doing this.
Right.
This is really unique.
Exactly.
It is cool.
It is.
I'm going to give them a 2.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm actually going to talk about how prone to diseases they can be. So not really intimidating.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of different diseases they can get. And specifically, chronic wasting disease is a big one we're worried about right now.
Definitely.
So chronic wasting disease, if you don't know, is a prion disease, which is a protein, actually. It's not like a bacteria or virus. And it attacks the brain of cervids, so mule deer, elk, moose, white-tailed deer, things like that. And it's transmitted from deer to deer through their saliva or other bodily fluids. And once it's in a deer, it's impossible to cure. And it's 100% fatal.
Yeah, that's really too bad.
It is. It's really kind of a downer. And the problem is the more mule deer that there are, the more they congregate and the more they spread this disease from deer to deer. That's what we
Right.
call a density-dependent disease. And so it's really hard for us to control. We're doing a lot of research as an agency to get a handle on this and to really understand the impacts on a population level. Diseases are not super fun to talk about. But you know what is? Razzle dazzle. Razzle dazzle are those unique features that this animal has that no other animal has. I'm going to give mule deer a 9.
Wow.
Yeah, really high. And it's because of something that I've had as a myth basically my whole life. I was always told growing up, deer are colorblind.
Yeah.
Because you're wearing this bright orange during gun season, you know?
Right.
And it's like, well, deer can obviously see that. And my dad was like, no, they're colorblind. Don't worry about it. And kind of colorblind. They just see differently than us. And what they see is really, really cool. So they see blue really, really well. And especially like UV light, they see really, really well.
Oh.
And that lets them, it plays into a lot of other factors with their eyes. It lets them see really well in the dusk, like right in that dark time before it's fully night. Mm-hmm. They also detect motion 4 times better than we can.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy.
Okay. See motion 4 times better and smell 1,000 times better.
Yes.
We have no chance.
Truly. And on top of that, they have a 300-degree field of vision.
Oh my gosh.
So basically the only place they can't see is between their ears, behind their head.
Yeah.
Like straight backwards across their back. Everywhere else they can see without having to turn their head.
Because their eyes are on the sides of their skull.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just all around incredible vision.
Yeah, I'd say that's well worth a 9.
Yeah. What did you give them?
I gave them a 6. And this is because, again, I know I already talked about migration, but I'm going to talk about it again. Now, migration pathways are actually determined by mothers.
Oh, wow.
I know. So the mothers will choose where they go. You know, the fawns will follow. And then when they're returning or finishing their migration, right, on the back end, they return every year to nearly the exact same spot.
So like the mothers are teaching the fawns
Where to
and
go.
the yearlings where to go.
Exactly.
So when they become
mothers,
oh,
they can do the
okay.
same thing. So they're training and preparing for generations to come.
That's kind of like what we talked about with beavers. Like that family dynamic is really interesting.
Yeah, very tight knit. So given all these interesting facts about mule deer, let's talk about the wild rating. Now, the wild rating is the average number of points given for all of our previous categories. Can I have a drum roll, please?
Their wild rating is a 6.3. It's
not
lower
bad.
than I would have expected.
Yeah, me too.
I think we say this every time. We gotta just give higher scores.
I know. It's
That's
always our fault.
I think the disease drags them
yeah,
down
that's
specifically.
true. That's true.
Now that we've learned all about the mule deer, you may be interested in experiencing them in nature. There are a few options, but before you head out and do these activities, make sure you keep your safety in mind. Never approach wildlife.
Never.
And also with mule deer, there are some disease concerns, especially if you're partaking in hunting. So just be aware of those and make sure you're wearing gloves and taking the proper precautions.
Absolutely. Speaking of hunting, this is one way that you can enjoy this species. Of course, if you're going to go hunting for mule deer, always check the regulations before you go. Photography is another awesome way to experience mule deer, especially during their migration when they're in those lower elevations because they're easier to see. You can see them in groups. What an awesome photo. And then lastly, I don't know if you've heard, but we have Mule Deer Days, which is a public event held by Game and Fish and the Muley Fanatics. And it's hosted in Rock Springs. And this year, in 2025, it'll be in March 21st through 23rd. And you can find more information in the description below.
Whew. That was fun. I'm already looking forward to the next episode. Are you?